What is up, y'all? Lord of the Plains here. I am so excited to talk about my best movies of 2024. Now, I will admit, the worst movies of 2024, that was kind of an interesting video to make just because of how much I hated some of them. But let's get into the good and the positive and talk about my top 10 most favorite movies. Now, before we get that, got a good old wine glass here. Once again, non-alcoholic, parents. Some cider. We're going to kick off the end of 2024 by talking about some of the best movies that came out this year. Cheers to y'all. I keep wanting to make a top 15 of the worst and best movies, but I would rather do my top 10. That way it's a shorter video. That way you don't have to keep listening to me to rant on and on how good these movies are. So I'm going to give you some honorable mentions before we get into it. Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Great way to kick off another trilogy from the original one. Deadpool and Wolverine. I know, a lot of people would expect it to be in your top 10, but as much as I like the film, some of the comedy just fell flat for me, and anytime I've rewatched it since, I'm just like, you know what? They are a better movie this year. Fall Guy, fun action, a lot of great plot lines and story, but like I said, and Deadpool and Wolverine, a lot better movies. We got Rebel Ridge, actually a really underrated movie. I actually almost consider this to be in my top 10, but a couple movies edged it out. And Twisters. Love the original Twister, and I like this one. It was a lot of fun. Anytime there's a disaster movie, I'm always there for it. But without further ado, here are the top 10 movies of 2024 for me. Number 10. Actually, I just realized this. There are 3 movies on my list this year that include Nicholas Hoult. The first one, at number 10, is called The Order. You got Jude Law, Nicholas Hoult, sort of like a period piece about, I think it was in the 70s or 80s, maybe in the 90s, I can't remember. But it's a simple bank robber movie. I'm always there for heist movies. There were some good plot points in this, good characterization. Action was actually really solid and good. Not a lot of bad things I really have to say about it. It's just one of those movies where you watch it, you enjoy it, you'll watch it every now and then. I just really enjoyed it. Like, maybe the only criticism I have is towards the end of the film, one of the characters just had an interesting decision, and it could have gone either way. And they just took it the other way where it was kind of interesting, but I still enjoyed how it played out. So I don't really have any issues with that. I just thought it was a really good, solid movie, and I highly recommend it. Number 9, we have Hitman from Netflix. Now, this movie, I had a lot of fun with this. Glenn Powell is definitely going to be one of the hottest movie stars throughout his entire career, probably. He did so good portraying all these different personas that he had for these hitmen. The action was really fun and good. I loved the plot line with his girlfriend at the end of the movie. You know, she hired a hitman to kill the husband. I actually really enjoyed it. Everything about this movie, Richard Linklater, he can really know how to direct an action comedy. Like, overall, I just really enjoyed it. I don't really have any qualms. Okay, here's my only issue with it. It wasn't released in the theaters. I wish it was, because that would have been so much fun to see on the big screen, but of course, Netflix had to take it and run with it. I'll get into that into a different video about movie theaters versus streaming. But overall, number 9, favorite movie of the year. Number 8, we're gonna go with Furiosa, a Mad Max story. Now with this movie, the action is actually probably the best action out of my top 10 this year. I enjoyed Anya Taylor-Joy. Chris Hemsworth gave an amazing performance as a villain. Like, everybody in this movie did their part really well. You also got to go back to the Mad Max franchise world, because when Fury Road was released, I think that was back in 2014 or 2015, so about 9 or 10 years ago, you get to see how carnage-filled, violent it is. Like, the entire plot line was solid. CGI was solid. A lot of the set pieces and cinematography were great. Overall, amazing. I almost rated it higher just because of the action and how much fun I had with it, but I'm going to keep it at a solid 8. All right, number 7, my second Nicholas Hoult movie of the year, and as much as I hate to say it, probably Clint Eastwood's final directed film, Juror number 2. Now, I was looking forward to this movie ever since they said that Clint Eastwood was potentially making his last directed film, and I was so excited to see what it would be. And you know what? From the first time I saw the trailer, I was really intrigued, but I'm glad I went and saw this in the theater. I really loved it. It's sort of like a modern take on 12 Angry Men with a little bit of a mystery in there. Essentially, the plot is the guy that's on the jury knew that he committed the crime that the guy was on trial for, and he was trying to decide whether or not that he should say anything, whether they need to convict him or not. And then you have the attorney trying to figure everything out, knows that he didn't do it, but yet at the same time, there's just a lot going on. I enjoyed the plot points. I enjoyed all the acting. I enjoyed all the side characters. J.K. Simmons was in there. He was great. We had Toni Collette. I love her to death. She's amazing. Zoe Deutsch. Like, everything about this movie I really loved. I don't have any issues with it. Well, I will say this. One of my coworkers made up a good point. The ending of the film, he doesn't like how open-minded it is, because as soon as you see the last shot, you can tell either it's going to go in the good direction or the bad direction. Sort of the same thing as like Inception with the Turner thing that he spins. Is it a dream? Is it not a dream? You know, I know a lot of people don't like to think about movies like that. They want it already resolved. But I love those types of movies because they make you explore what's going to happen. They make you think about it. And those are the type of movies that make it really good, because 10 years down the line, somebody watches it and you're like, oh, hey, I do remember that. Let's talk about it again. So that's what I really liked about the movie. All right, number 6. I'm probably going to get a shot in the foot by saying this, but Dune Part 2 is number 6. Not in the top 5 for me. As much as I thought this was a phenomenal movie, with the acting, Hans Zimmer scored, the set pieces, the CGI, the practical effects, everything. It's honestly, essentially, probably one of the best sci-fi movies in the last 20 years, or it could be the best movie in the last 20 years. I'm saying it's that good. One thing I have to take into is rewatchability. I don't think I would rewatch this as much as the other 5 on my top 5. That's the reason why it's at number 6. As much as I love this movie, rewatchability, it's going to be a little bit harder because it is the second part of a movie, so you should probably go back and watch Dune Part 1, which is 2.5 hours, and then this one's almost 3 hours. So it's like, as soon as Dune Part 2 starts, I'm like, oh, what happened in the first movie? And then I'm like, oh yeah, I remember it. But just like rewatchability, it's a little bit lower for me. I'll probably watch it a few times a year. But these other top 5 movies that I have, I could probably watch once a month. And with that being said, let's get into the top 5 of my top 10 list. Number 5, gonna get emotional with Inside Out 2. Now, this movie made over $1 billion, and as it should have. A great sequel, great voice acting. I love the addition of Maya Hawke as Anxiety, Paul Walter Hauser. Like, even with the replacements they had to make with a couple of the emotions from the first movie, I thought they still did really well. You couldn't even really notice some of the characters or some of the actors had changed. I loved the plot line. Animation was jaw-dropping. I loved how it's a teenage Riley, so you got to go back. Us in our late 20s, early 30s, or even adults in their 40s could go back to their teenage years and think about, oh yeah, I went through that emotion. But it was just like so relatable. I really loved it. Honestly, if they ever make a third film, I'm kind of on the fence if I want them to, because these are 2 really perfect Disney Pixar movies, and I just kind of hope that if they do make a third one, that they make it their last one. Unlike Toy Story, where Tim Allen is already 80% done recording his voice lines for Toy Story 5. So I know most Disney and Pixar movies can make over $1 billion, but at some point you got to stop, right? So I think this would be the great stopping point for them, because they would have ended it on a fantastic note. With this one, we are going to go into the skies and defy gravity. That is Wicked Part 1. I love musicals. Phantom of the Opera is my favorite musical of all time. Wicked is in my top 10. But this movie actually outdid the actual Broadway performance. I really loved the movie. All the songs, I thought, they had their moments. They were good. The acting was really great. If you remember me talking about my most anticipated movies of 2024, you might remember me absolutely on Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo for the picks as Elphaba and Glinda, but I was completely wrong. They did absolutely fantastic. Ariana Grande as Glinda, phenomenal. Cynthia Erivo as Elphaba, holy cow. Like, everything about this movie was jaw-dropping great. The animation was freaking fantastic. Other than 2 parts of CGI errors that I noticed, the practical effects and CGIs were flawless. Everybody, from what I heard, either loves the Defying Gravity ending or they hate it, because they pause and they let part of the story come through. But if you watch it and let your mind not think of anything else and feel the emotion, My mom and I remember we both could not stop crying and hyperventilating because the emotion that it brought, and it just was absolutely phenomenal. So with that, that is my number 4. I was actually going to put it at number 2, but then I went back and rewatched these next 3, and this is how I decided. Number 3, we have The Wild Robot. Chris Sanders, love the guy. He voiced Stitch. He directed this movie for DreamWorks. I don't know how many times I can watch this movie and not recommend it. Everything about it was absolutely incredible. Voice acting was phenomenal. Animation was phenomenal. Action was phenomenal. Story, plot, everything. Honestly, I would consider this a 9.7 out of 10. Literally almost a perfect film. Like, Jaws is a perfect film. Shawshank Redemption is a perfect film. Hell or High Water, Where My Name Is From, it's a perfect film. But this one I would probably consider to be in the top 100 perfect films of all time. All right, number 2. This is an interesting choice. My number 2 movie of the year is called Anora. So it's pretty much about let's say a worker, if you know what I mean, ends up getting hired by a rich Russian teen kid or rich Russian adult. And she hires her to do stuff with them for the week. And then what happens after that first 20 minutes, 30 minutes, becomes an incredible acting, plot line, and character-driven story. First 20 minutes has, sure, a lot of language, a lot of nudity, a lot of sex, all of that. But it's part of what makes it so great. The music is absolutely jaw-dropping too. Now, if the lead actress, Mikey Mickelson, I can't remember. I'm using my phone to record, so I can't look it up. But if she does not win Best Actress, I'm actually going to be sad. Because while Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande can win Best Actress for that, I think she absolutely deserves it with what she had to go through in that movie. But everything about this movie, actually, this is going to be a hot take, but that is a 10 out of 10 movie. As well as my next movie, which is a 10 out of 10. But Anora, I absolutely loved it. Rewatchability is high just because of how the story is and how the characterization is. A lot of people seem that it's going to be like in their top 15, but for me, it's my number 2 movie of the year. I just absolutely loved it. Now, with number 1. If you remember me saying at the beginning of this video, Nicholas Hoult was in 3 movies in my top 10 this year. This one, it's Nosferatu. Robert Eggers is a visionary filmmaker with The Lighthouse, The Witch, with The Northman, but he really outdid himself on this one. Bill Skarsgård, funny enough, he was in one of my bottom movies of the year, The Crow, but you don't even know Bill Skarsgård is Nosferatu. You can't even tell that he is this creature who essentially is like Dracula. If you literally posted a photo of him right here and you told me that's Bill Skarsgård, I would be like, you are absolutely lying. There's no way that's him. He completely transformed. His voice isn't unlike any sort of monster or creature you've ever heard. The acting was great. Now, I will say something about the acting. It may seem weird because Lily Rose Depp, who did absolutely incredible, Aaron Taylor Johnson, Nicholas Hoult, Emma Corrin, they all did an amazing and immaculate job. Willem Dafoe. The one thing that really stuck with me is they have to go through multiple emotions. Like Lily Rose Depp, she goes from crying to scared to absolutely jaw-dropping, freaked out, back to happy and sad. Like the amount of emotions that they have to go through in this film, even in the same scene, is incredible. The music is eerie, it's great, it's jaw-dropping. Cinematography is top-notch. You get a lot of color, you get a lot of gray and black and white, a lot of the tone deafness of the snow. Like everything about this movie is great. A lot of people are saying it's not Robert Eggers' best movie, and I agree. I think The Lighthouse is probably better. But for my top movie of this year, it's Nosferatu. This is a movie I'm going to be going back to thinking about for a long time. Honestly, I really want to get the vinyl because it's like 40 tracks in there. And especially that... oh my gosh. So I'm not going to spoil it because you really need to go see it. But essentially the final confrontation between Nosferatu and Lily Rose Depp's character, with the music and the emotion that happens, that is my favorite moment in movies this year. All in all, Nosferatu is one of the best horror thriller movies in the last 10 years. That is my hot take. I am going to stand by it, and I will absolutely defend this movie as my number 1. Alrighty, y'all, I really appreciate watching this video for my best movies of 2024. Don't forget to check out the worst movies of 2024. That's also posted, and my most anticipated movies of next year. I really appreciate it. Like, subscribe, comment. Please tell me what your favorite movie of this year was. Or if I didn't mention a movie, comment below and let me know why it was your favorite of the year. But as always, peace, love, freedom. Like, subscribe, and comment. See ya, y'all.